Good morning. Happy Friday. Welcome into Let's Bet It here on Pickswise and Pickswise.com. Let's Bet It brought to you by Superbook Sports. I'm Mark Zeno, joined by Jared Smith as we get you set for the college and NFL weekend here. We've got a lot to do. Howard Bender of Fantasy Alarm will join us as we discuss some plays for the weekend. We'll recap Thursday Night Football. We got some college football games to get to tonight and the rest of the weekend as it is championship weekend, so plenty to do here. Make sure you guys download the Pickswise app, available on the Apple Store and Google Play. And subscribe to the Pickswise YouTube channel. Let us know what comments and questions you have and what picks you're on. We'll get to them all here before the end of the show. Jared, happy Friday. Good to talk to you as always. What's going on, my man?
Yeah, good morning. Happy Friday. Good day for Josh Allen and friends. And a great weekend for college football. Should be some interesting matchups this weekend.
Yeah, to say the least, there should be. So as we go forward here with championship weekend, before we get to that, let's recap Thursday Night Football because it was an interesting game last night. And once again, I was on the Bills last night, but I think the Bills have sort of reasserted their dominance in the AFC East. Remember, for as good as Miami is and the Patriots being competitive and the Jets being more than what we thought they would be, this is still the Bills' division to lose, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And it was also a game where they're, got a little healthier defensively. I know Von Miller is still out, but, you do have Tre'Davious White starting to play like his normal self. And you saw that transpire with some of the numbers we saw in the passing game last night. Now, maybe some of it was just Mac Jones, but the Patriots had a 37% success rate on passing plays. So, Mac Jones and company was not good. And again, you want to say that that's, the Patriots offense isn't really a passing offense. That's fair. Their success rate in the running game wasn't that much better, but it just shows that, this Buffalo defense, I think, was the reason that they were being held back at times, giving up, more than we would expect the Buffalo defense to give up, especially to the Lions last week and in prior weeks to the Vikings, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the defense is starting to percolate a little bit. And this is a defense that, for the majority of the season, was a top 5, top 3, maybe number 1 type unit. So I think Josh Allen's going to be fine. He went through a little bit of an injury spell with his elbow, but also a little bit of a, between the ears injury, just kind of figuring things out. And last night we saw him play really well. I mean, the Bills last night on late downs were unstoppable, and that's Josh Allen doing his thing. They had a 70% success rate on third down throws. 7 out of 10 times Josh Allen drops back on third down, they picked up whatever was a deemed successful play. So I think that's where this Buffalo team is dangerous. When Josh Allen's doing his thing on late downs, can't really contain him. And when the defense is playing really well. And both of those things happened last night.
Yeah, and again, I mean, the Bills still have another matchup left with the Dolphins, another one with the Jets, and obviously another one with the Patriots. So, even though they dropped their first 2 division games, I don't doubt they're still the best team in the AFC. Even though the playoff road might not go through Buffalo anymore because of some of the losses they took, Jared, I think in general, again, this is still their division to hold on to or not hold on to for that matter. All right, let's turn our attention here to week, what are we on, 13 in the NFL? Is that what we're coming up with here, Jared? I mean, the season is flying by. It is going absolutely crazy how quick it is going by here. We got some key games to get to. Titans and Eagles. One of the more interesting games on the schedule. Eagles opened up, I think it's 5-point favorites. Might be down to 4.5 at certain spots. Total of 44 here. Titans 4-1 against the number in their last 5 meetings. Home team in this series 5-1 against the number in the last 6 meetings. So I love the Titans here. This is too many points for the Eagles. I think they're coming back down to earth. And with Derrick Henry and you saw the Packers put 33 up on that defense, this could be a bad spot for Philadelphia.
Yeah, market agrees with you, no doubt. Down from 6, now I'm seeing 4.5s. Pretty much painted across the board. And yeah, this is a Titans team, though, that has not been great managing up this year. And that's the one thing that would concern me in this game. They're 1-4 against teams with a winning record. And the one thing that I was on the Titans last week, and I thought it was a great spot. We got 3. Game closed the pick. Can't ask for much better, CLV, right? That was a CLV trophy for my mantle. But what happened with the Titans last week is they didn't do the Titans things that we expect them to do. which is be buttoned up in certain areas. For example, discipline and coaching decisions that usually Mike Vrabel is on point with. Like, I didn't love the decision to kick a field goal to go from 7 to 4. And obviously the penalty on the final drive. I mean, I know those are fluky things, but those are things that Mike Vrabel usually has buttoned up. So we'll see how that looks this week. The one thing I love about Tennessee, and this is going to be the matchup to watch in this game, the Eagles have a top 5 O-line, and their offensive line's been dominant all year. Lane Johnson's only allowed 7 pressures the whole season. There's some right tackles in the league that allow that in one game. So I think that offensive line against the Titans defensive line, which is a top 5, top 10 pressure rate, bottom 10 blitz rate team, and we talk about this a lot, the reason why that's important, they can generate pressure without having to commit extra bodies into the box. That's something Tennessee does. The Jets do that well. Good defenses, the Niners can do that, and it allows their secondary, which for the most part is a little bit subpar, kind of operate in the scheme they want to operate in. So we'll see how the pressure turns out in this game. If they can get pressure on Jalen Hurts, force him to make some of those throws. If they can, then yeah, the Titans are absolutely live in this game because the Eagles haven't shown me that, that finishing kick that we saw earlier in the year. So should be a fascinating game. 2 tough-nosed football teams. Going to be a lot of running probably. But Derrick Henry's been a little pedestrian lately. I mean, go look at the Bengals box score. I was shocked with what Lou Anarumo and his staff was able to do to Derrick Henry last week. So that is the matchup to watch. Can the Eagles stop Derrick Henry? And can the Titans defensive line get pressure on Jalen Hurts and force him to either leave the pocket or make some of those wild throws? But this should be a very entertaining game.
Huge game in the NFC East. Commanders traveling to MetLife to take on the Giants. Washington laying 2.5. Washington has won 6 of 7. They haven't allowed more than 21 points to any opponent in a 7-game stretch. The Giants have lost 3 of 4. Desperately need a win right now. Under has gone 8-3 in the last 11. And the Commanders are 2-5 against the number in their last 7 meetings here. I like the Commanders a lot. I don't know if they should be laying points on the road within the division at this point.
This is like, to me, the ideal teaser spot of the week. I think.
Absolutely. The Giants are definitely
like I think the Giants I got them through 3 and 7. I got them to 8.5. I mean, I don't really think there's any other way to play this game besides that, because I agree. I wouldn't want to lay with Washington on the road, but I don't trust the Giants to win, but I trust them to keep this game close. They've been very good at doing that this year.
Certainly have. So it'll be interesting to see again. I'm curious to see, as a fan, how well the Giants play. I thought they played well enough against the Cowboys on Thanksgiving, where not that they necessarily could have won the game, but I still go back to that one decision that Brian Daboll made to go for it on 4th down by a point in the middle of the 3rd quarter. I think changed the entire course of that game. I would have loved to have seen how it would have played out if he would have punted the ball and made the Cowboys go the length of the field. C'est la vie, it is what it is. We'll see how that goes. Another great game between the Chiefs and Bengals, rematch of last year's AFC title game. Not only that, rematch of last year, a wild game in Cincinnati that the Bengals ended up winning despite Zach Taylor's best efforts to throw the game away inside the goal line there. Chiefs laying 2 here, which is interesting to me because the Chiefs have been a bigger favorite than normal a lot this year. In fact, the Chiefs only have 2 games, Jared, that they've won by more than 11 points. They are not a team that blows a lot of people out, and so they keep getting these touchdown spreads and big numbers and everything. Laying only 2 points here. Chiefs 1-5 against the number in their last 5 meetings. Under has gone 8-3 in the last 11, although I wouldn't take an under here despite the high total. All that said, I've gone against the Bengals the last 2 weeks, been on the wrong side. Not sure I'm going to do it for a 3rd week in a row, though.
Yeah, no, and if you just look at the records, right, which obviously is a very rudimentary handicap, but Bengals are 7-4 and Chiefs are 9-2, right? And Bengals have had their problems this year. The Chiefs, for the most part, have looked pretty good all year. They've got the MVP, and yeah, this line's beneath a field goal. So it's definitely telling you the Bengals are very live here. In fact, I kind of capped this game as +2. I would take Cincy. Anything field goal 2 in that range, I would take Cincy. I think if we get to a pick 'em, that's where I would maybe flip back to the Chiefs. But I don't want to lay points with the Chiefs on the road in this spot based off of what the numbers are telling me. The one thing I will say, though, the Chiefs' offensive line's been great this year. They do have a little bit of a weakness on the interior. And we saw last week Joe Thuney was out, which means it was a backup right guard, Nick Allegretti, against Aaron Donald, and that did not go well for the backup right guard. Now, we'll see if Thuney plays this week. If he doesn't, well, that's another backup right guard going up against DJ Reader, who has really started to come on of late. We saw, I just told you what the Bengals were able to do to Derrick Henry last week. I think they held him like 2 yards per carry. So Lou Anarumo doesn't get a lot of credit. A lot of this Bengals team gets the offensive credit, and Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. We should see Chase and Mixon back this week. I think that's a reason why this line has kind of trended under 3. But really, the matchup to watch here is the Bengals defensive line, the interior. Reader and Hendrickson on the outside has been fantastic against this Chiefs offensive line. And can they protect Patrick Mahomes? Are we going to see pressure on the interior? Are we going to see Patrick have to do a lot of the things that Josh Allen doing last night, running all over the field, making plays? Now, he's obviously capable of doing that. But I think if Patrick had a choice, he'd rather have a nice, clean pocket to work from. The one thing I will say, too, on the other side, we have baked this narrative into our heads about the Bengals offensive line being bad. Well, the numbers really haven't shown that over the last few weeks. Only 2 pressures all game against Tennessee and 45 pass blocking snaps. That is the lowest rate of the season for the Bengals. And like I said, Tennessee is very good. Top 10 pressure rate, bottom 10 blitz rate. One of the best teams in the league at generating pressure, and they could not get pressure on Joe Burrow last week. Something to keep an eye on. The Chiefs are not as good getting pressure on the quarterback, and I think that's a positive for Joe. Might be sitting back there and hanging out and being able to pick apart this Chiefs secondary, which, again, has been had at times this year. So I do kind of lean the Bengals here, catching points at home. Not my favorite play of the week, but I don't think I'm willing to lay with Kansas City.
Question here for you, Jared. If you had to say one team was more overrated than the other, who is it? Kansas City or Cincinnati?
Overrated. I don't think either team is overrated.
I think they're both.
I don't think either team is overrated. Yeah, I mean, I think relative to what, though, I think is the follow-up question I have there. Like what are they like who's better than them in the AFC? Buffalo, but I don't think anyone else. Like, if I had to give you an AFC power ratings, I mean, it's not exactly, I'm not really reinventing the wheel here. It's basically what the odds are telling us. I would put Kansas City 1. I would put Buffalo 1. I would put Kansas City, Buffalo 1A, 1B. Honestly, I think whoever has home field will be favored in the AFC Championship game. I think it's honestly as simple as that. And I think I would probably put Cincinnati slightly ahead of Miami right now. I really would, because I just don't trust Miami's defense. I don't. And I think Cincinnati's defense is a unit that we're not talking about that is really good. And it's a unit that basically carried them to the Super Bowl last year. Because let's be honest, Joe Burrow was getting pounded during the postseason last year. And they were very fortunate to come out of some of those games. And, the defense made the stops when they needed to make them in the big games, in the playoffs. So I think Cincinnati's defense actually is a little undervalued, to be perfectly honest with you.
All right, well, let's turn our attention to NFL props here coming up in Week 13. Welcoming in Howard Bender from Fantasy Alarm. Follow him on Twitter at RotoBuzzGuy. He's the head of content over at Fantasy Alarm. Always great to speak with you, Howard. Welcome here on this Friday morning. Hope all is well.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are we today? Week 13 in the books coming up, huh?
HB, let's go.
What's up, boys? What's up? Who's ready?
All right, let's get into sort of some of the props you're looking at this weekend. One of them right here in Atlanta, Kenny Pickett against the Atlanta Falcons. Surprising you're going to go over here. I know it's a bad Falcons secondary, but it seems like a lofty number for Kenny Pickett.
It does seem like a really lofty number for Kenny Pickett, which is kind of why I like it so much. I mean, the Atlanta Falcons pass defense, like you said, absolutely terrible. Whether A.J. Terrell is in there or not, I just feel like this is one of those games where, Jaylen Warren will probably be in the backfield. He's a better, more frequent pass catcher than Najee Harris usually is. And I just feel like this is that game. This is that coming out party for Kenny Pickett, right? This is, him and George Pickens connecting against a weak secondary. This is him hitting Deontay Johnson to help move the chains. I just feel like this has all the earmarks of being a much better passing attack for Pittsburgh. Now that they've kind of got a little bit of a change of personnel, the offensive line has improved a little bit as far as their pass protection goes. So, yeah, I'm not usually in on a prop like this for a guy like Kenny Pickett. There's something about it here this week that's really just kind of pushing me that way.
The fun fact about you, I'm glad you mentioned the Steelers' offensive line. I like to consider myself, by shape and by brain, an offensive line guru. So Pittsburgh's a top 10 pass blocking offensive line this year. I know they haven't run the ball very effectively, and that's fair to say. Some of that's maybe Najee Harris and the personnel they have in the backfield. But I think some of that is also what they're trying to do. But Pittsburgh's offensive line is getting after it in pass blocking. And Kenny Pickett, listen, I watched that game start to finish on Monday night. I mean, Kenny Pickett, he looks fine. And
look comfortable, right? Look real comfortable.
Yeah, they've got some dudes. Now, he missed some throws. He missed some wide open throws, and he was a little bit inaccurate at times. But I don't think he is going to be the reason why they're going to, get their butts kicked down the stretch. Like, he's not playing like a rookie quarterback. He's playing pretty well. So and he's, again, George Pickens. I mean, goodness gracious, if you gave Pickens and Pickett a full season of work, maybe George would be near the top of that offensive rookie of the year market, because man, oh man, anytime I watch him play, I leave the game impressed. Speaking of impressed, I think Jalen Hurts, I was asked this on a Philly radio station this week, and I don't know if I view the Eagles as a Super Bowl, yeah, they're going to be in the Super Bowl. Like, I don't know, and that's because I don't know if Jalen Hurts' efficiency is quite there. And this is going to be a game where we're going to see exactly how his mettle is going to be tested, because the Titans are a really tough defense, and they're coming off a loss, and over 1.5 touchdowns here, plus money. Tell me why.
Well, I mean, first of all, the fact that I'm getting plus money on that, where I mean, he's thrown for 2 touchdowns in 5 of his last 6 games. I'm looking at this game here now. Yeah, okay, fine. Philly over the last couple of weeks, they look like they've softened up a little bit. Tennessee's pass defense looks like that's firmed up a little bit. However, look at the opponents that Tennessee has really gone up against, where they have kind of shined a little bright. Not really, any kind of offensive juggernaut or anything like that. What I love about this one here, it's A.J. Brown going up against his former team. He asked them to pay him. He said, build this team around me and let's go for it. And they opted not to do that. And so I think, him coming back. So at least 1 touchdown goes to A.J. Brown. So you're telling me I need 1 touchdown from, I don't know.
Maybe A.J. Brown gets 2.
I listen. That would be beautiful, but I don't want to be. Pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. Jared, I don't want to. I don't want to go to the slaughterhouse here. So
go 3.
Give me 4. Give me a game breaker. But I mean, if you're telling me that if A.J. Brown gets 1 touchdown, that I need.
Sure.
Mark, you look so upset. Are you not a Jalen Hurts guy here, Mark? You look so sad.
Mark's having some issues this morning with his internet. He's refreshing a bunch of times. So.
Oh, okay. All right. I was like, man, he's like all stone-faced on this one. He hates me.
RBF. RBF. This is RBF.
Yes. I'm under the weather and I'm lagging.
It's RHF, resting Hurts face.
Resting Hurts face. All right. Well, but if you're telling me that a guy who's thrown for 2 touchdowns or more, or at least 2 touchdowns in 5 of his last 6 games, and you're giving me plus money, and I know that A.J. Brown wants to get into that end zone, and I know Hurts wants to get A.J. Brown into that end zone against his former team, that if I'm looking at 1 touchdown pass here to Miles Sanders or Devonta Smith, Quez Watkins, all of a sudden, here's the funny thing, and I think a lot of people are off on Quez Watkins, and this is what I love about it, is that when Dallas Goedert went down, who's taking all of that underneath work? Hurts is starting to hit Watkins a little bit more coming out of the slot. So I'm sorry, man. I think for plus money here, plus 130, that's a juicy, juicy little number for me, and I'll take it.
I like it.
Also here, you're going to back Trevor Lawrence? I mean, are you officially on the Trevor Lawrence train right now?
I mean, listen, I feel like we've seen improvement from him. He's got his ups and downs. He's working with this new system and what they have here. I'm certainly glad that Lauren's not here for today, because listen, I love stacking up me some Jags in this matchup against the Detroit Lions. I think that this could be a nice one here. We're seeing Lawrence a little bit more confident. He's running more, confidently with the ball. And what I love about this is that he's utilizing his weapons. I'm not a huge Zay Jones fan, but the targets don't lie, so you have to pay attention to that. Christian Kirk against this Detroit secondary, yum. Give me Evan Engram catching passes against this Detroit defense that gives up the second most fantasy points per game to the tight end position. So that all centers kind of around touchdowns, which is why I like the over 1.5 touchdown prop here. Yeah, Kirk. Can we throw in a revenge game narrative here for Marvin Jones, who looked outstanding catching that touchdown last week? So I think there are enough weapons here for Trevor Lawrence in a game with a very high game total that we're looking at. Was it like 51.5, I think is where it was the last time I saw it. And so if we're thinking that this is going to be a defensive liability game and these teams are going to be able to kind of kick, I mean, I don't like, minus 130. To me, that sounds like it's a safe play for 2 touchdowns at least.
Zay Jones had the highest PFF rating for any offensive player on the Jaguars last week, even higher than Trevor Lawrence, which is very hard to do for a quarterback. So Zay Jones is balling right now, and Trevor Lawrence is playing really well. Yeah, got a lot of confidence. And this is now the one thing. It's funny, the Lions defense just Aaron Glenn, their defensive coordinator, he just does not care. Like, he will stay in man coverage and they'll blitz their ass off all game because that's what their scheme is. Now they might be getting back Jeff Okudah this week, so that's obviously one thing that could tilt the scales a little bit in Detroit's favor. But I don't know if that's going to matter too much against Trevor Lawrence, because I do think this Jaguars offense is playing really well. Lawrence hasn't thrown a pick in 3 games, and he's starting to really take control with Doug Peterson calling plays. All right, this Browns-Texans game is fascinating. I gave out Texans +7 as my 3-star play this week. I'm sure I'll get roasted by multiple people if the Browns blow them out, but I just think this is going to be a really fun game. And I like your angle on Chubb, because if I'm Nick Stefanski, or Kevin Stefanski. Nick Stefanski is his brother that doesn't exist, but Kevin Stefanski. I am calling Nick Chubb left, right, and center all game long to take the pressure off Deshaun Watson in his first start in like 2.5 years. So that to me is the angle here, and you've got a prop that kind of matches that line of thinking.
It's good to see you and I in such lockstep on this game. I feel the exact same way. You would have to be a complete idiot to not give Nick Chubb 15 to 20 carries in this game against Houston. You would have to be the biggest moron on the planet. And Stefanski has had those moments, but this year he's running Nick Chubb. And while the record really hasn't reflected that, we've seen the results here for Nick Chubb. So his longest rushing prop is 19.5 yards. He's done that in all but 2 games this season. I don't really understand why they refuse to do it. Like, I was hammering this prop early on in the season. Then all of a sudden, a couple weeks ago, it started to kind of tick up a little bit, and I saw it at like 20.5 and 21.5, and it's back down here to 19.5. Again, every game but 2, he's had at least 120-yard rush. So if you're going to tell me against Houston, a team that is the absolute worst against the run, that Nick Chubb can't rip off a 20-yard, 23-yard run, come on. I'm in.
Well, I can back you on Nick Chubb. I will never back you on a kicker. How dare you bring a kicker prop to this show, Howard?
Well, it's only because I couldn't find punt props this morning. I was digging, I was looking, but come on, let's face it here. Brandon McManus, give me the under on 1.5 extra points, because that means that the Broncos need to score more than 1 touchdown against the Ravens. Now, listen, I get it. The Ravens have not looked like the Ravens are supposed to, but that's offensively. Defensively, I dig what they're doing here. Yes, they had a lapse against the Jaguars last week, but still, you look at what's gone on with QB pressures, sacks, run stuffing, ever since they got Roquan Smith in that trade with the Bears. I mean, it was a huge move for them. And I'm sorry, man, but I cannot be in on anything Denver oriented at all with this. I mean, this offense is pathetic. That's why I was looking for punt props, because I want the over on the number of punts that we're going to see, in this game. I mean, I think it's like that. But so Brandon McManus, the under 1.5 extra points. What's that?
It'll drop eventually. Usually those don't drop till later in the week, but it'll pop up, I'm sure, at some point.
Oh yeah, and which I'll look for, and I will happily bet. But for minus 135, under 1.5 extra points. I mean, come on, man. I mean, not only that, but I mean, how many teams also kind of go for 2? And if Denver somehow miraculously gets a touchdown in this one here, or a second touchdown, should I say, are they going to go for 2? Are they going to try to get back in on this one here? Is it going to be a 14-13 game? I kind of feel like that's where we're at.
Yeah, I agree. Speaking of that, we gave out the first leg of for those of you that haven't read my Pickswise Best Bets column for NFL, it dropped overnight, so please check it out. But for those that haven't read it yet, the Giants were part of my teaser, +2.5, +8.5. The Ravens, the other leg, from -8 to -2. I just don't see Baltimore losing this game at home, coming off of a loss with Denver traveling. I mean, like, how can you trust Russell Wilson to win a game on the road against the Ravens defense right now? Like, I don't see that happening. Now, of course, anything could happen, but I don't see that happening. So yeah,
but I mean,
I like it.
Here's the thing also with Denver is that their defense has been phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Last 2 games, though, they've given up over 20 points. They're starting to soften. They're starting to get annoyed. We saw the whole thing between Mike Purcell, the defensive lineman, and Russell Wilson.
More than anything.
Oh, I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, it was like if had Denver scored 19 points or more in every game this season, they would have been like 9-1 back in week 10. Yeah. I mean, it was something ridiculous like that. So these last 2 games, the defense is getting tired. The defense is getting frustrated. Yeah, I'm with you completely. I was in on the Ravens, the -8.5. I was still in on that one here. I mean, this game's just reeks of like a 31-3 or 31-7 game at the most.
Howard, before we let you go, that's a fantastic situation to dissect. What happens to Denver? They fire Hackett, Wilson stays. Like what's the scenario? Like, is that the most likely scenario for you? With this I mean, this is one of the more unique situations that I can recall in recent years, where a team went all in on a quarterback and literally within the first 8 weeks, it was like over. It was done. Like, I don't know what the answer is, but obviously changes have to be made, right?
Changes definitely have to be made. I figure they're just waiting till the end of the season. It's a lost year. They're just waiting till the end of the season. They'll fire Hackett immediately. Monday after the last game of the year, and then they're going to rebuild. And I think that they're going to try to explore, quarterbacks coach, offensive coordinator from up in Seattle, people who have had experience working with Russell Wilson and know what they want to do as far as a scheme goes with the style of play that he likes. He likes to pepper the sidelines to help move the chains. He doesn't like to throw it over the middle. He'll heave it downfield every so often. I mean, I think that, Losing Javonte Williams, I think, was a big thing, because I think that Denver could have possibly turned it around had they had a more successful running game to help support. Like, that's what Wilson's used to. He's used to a run-first scheme that they run in Seattle, and he's used to that taking some of the pressure off of him. And I think with the loss of Javonte Williams, they never really recovered. Melvin Gordon is trash. And the rest of the hodgepodge running backs that they have over there is just – it's just not a good situation. So I think that they try to find some sort of coach or offensive coordinator from Seattle that they can kind of bring down, give Russell Wilson a little bit more familiarity. They kind of clear the air among the team, and they say, listen, this is a fresh start. Kind of like Doug Peterson coming in and taking over the Jaguars after just a horror show with Urban Meyer. Yeah. I think that Denver just needs that kind of just like a little scrubbing, behind the ears.
I think Zeno is still having issues, so I am going to say farewell to you, Howard. No, I wish he was. I wish he was. That would be that would be a better answer. He's here in spirit. The Zeno spirit god is here. Mark, are you good, bud? How do we want to handle this?
I think I'm good. End? I'm trying to be good. Okay. I'm not as good as I should be.
Trying to be good.
I'm good.
We're gonna handle things as best we can. This is it's just one of those mornings, Howard. We just got to roll with the punches, Yeah. Just got to roll with it. Howard, what's your favorite? While Mark gets situated here, what is your favorite? I didn't check the 3-star page yet. If you had your picks up, but what are your what are your looks for this weekend, non-prop wise in the NFL? Because you've been doing.
Non-prop.
You had the over in that Seattle Vegas game the other day, right?
I did have the over in that one there. What I have over at Pickswise this week, I heard you guys talking about that Kansas City Cincinnati game. I actually wrote that one up. I'm on the opposite side of you there, Jared, because give me Kansas City. I mean, it's a 1.5 point spread.
It's a toss-up game.
It is.
It can go either way.
You have to go with who you think is going to win that game.
Sure.
And so that's I went that direction there. I took Kansas City. I love the over in that one, even at 53. I just think that this is Mahomes and Burrow just showing off for everybody. I took the Ravens -8.5 against the against the Denver Broncos, and the under. That's a 3-star pick right there, under 38. Come on, that's why I said 31-7. Ooh, getting close. And then I'll take the Chargers on the road against the Raiders. I think that.
Oh, you're nuts.
I'm nuts. I'm crazy. I'm bonkers.
Love the Raiders this week. And the Raiders should be the second best tease option there. The Chargers can't separate from anybody. Nope. And the Raiders are actually playing pretty inspired football as of late. See, I would go with your teaser options, Jared, for what do you call it? The Chargers and the other one, the other easy one we talked about, not the Ravens.
Giants.
What was the other one you had? Giants. Thank you. That's where I would sit on my teaser options.
Sure. I don't have a problem.
Z, let me ask you a question here. Would you not think, I mean, after everything that we've seen, this inspired play by the Raiders and everybody's in on them, and isn't this not? And I'm going to freak out the fantasy community for a moment that's watching here also. But doesn't
be careful.
This just
those are your boys and girls?
Doesn't this just scream? Oh yeah. Load up Josh Jacobs. He was going to miss the game last week, and what did he do? He came back, and he ended up with 303 all-purpose yards and 2 touchdowns. I'm in on Josh Jacobs. What's to say that this dude does not tweak that calf in the first quarter, and then we have to rely on Amir Abdullah, and the ground game doesn't get going for support for Derek Carr, and then he starts going with his interceptions again, and then all of a sudden, the Chargers end up eking this one out by a late field goal.
On the bright side, the Chargers' rush defense is terrible, so you and Jared could run through it. So there is that. I mean, they can't stop anybody on the ground.
We could.
So, I mean,
couldn't even run past my dog the other day when I went for a jog with my dog. He was running laps around me, so I don't know about that, Mark. I don't run miles every morning like you do. He was credit, Jared. I was like, It was tough. It's like that SpongeBob meme, when he's sitting on the wall and he's. I'm good though. We're good. Getting some more running in. As long as we're good.
I listen. I think you're going to see a trend start to flip back in the other direction, and that's divisional dogs are going to start to not cover at the rate that they have been. There's going to be that regression now as you get later in the season that the better teams are going to end up covering in divisional games. The problem is the Chargers aren't that good of a team. They're just not. They are.
Our offensive line really struggled this year, and Pipkins is still out, and we'll see what Mike
losing Rashawn Slater was huge.
Yes.
Losing,
and also Corey Linsley's been in and out of the lineup all year. I mean, you're talking about center, left tackle. I mean, and now your right tackle is banged up. I mean, it's those are the bookends of your offensive line, and me, Mr. Offensive Line. So that's a struggle. That's a struggle this year, I think, for the Chargers.
Yeah. I'm with you.
All right, Howard. Well, again, you guys check him out at RotoBuzz Guy on Fantasy Alarm. He's the chief of content there. Thanks for the insight. Thanks for picking me up as I was having some technical issues. I appreciate it. But enjoy the football weekend, brother.
Thank you, guys. Have a great weekend as well.
I like that nickname for Howard, the Chief. That is absolutely Howard's new nickname. The Chief.
All right, we have some big college football games this weekend, Jared.
Yes, we do.
And one of them will end up being my play of the day, so I will save that for the end there. But 5 Power 5 conference championship games, some other conference championship games, and a degenerate special between Akron and Buffalo. If you are so inclined to jump in on that game. But where are you leaning this weekend?
Yeah, there's a bunch going on this weekend. So I'll be honest, though. It's not my favorite. Like, if you were going to ask me, conference championship weekend, I'm fired up to bet some of these games. I'm not as bullish on the market this week. First of all, there's a lot of big spreads. You got double digits, almost 20-point spreads basically in Michigan and Georgia. And then you've got these toss-up games in Big 12 and Pac-12 country that are kind of polarizing. So there's really no middle ground this week. Either you like the big favorites to cover and you like, USC and TCU to get across the finish line and get into the college football playoff, or you're rooting for chaos because LSU keeps things close and Kansas State upsets TCU and Utah. So it's a very interesting weekend in the college football markets. I don't think there's a middle ground. I didn't see a ton of value. I do like Clemson a little bit. I was hoping that line got down to 7. North Carolina hasn't faced a ranked opponent all season. Ugh. This is not a good week to face your first ranked opponent of the season. So that kind of concerns me a little bit.
How much do you count the disappointment factor of getting their doors blown off last week or 2 weeks ago, I should say, and then, dropping that game to South Carolina? What do they really have to play for?
Yeah, I absolutely. Motivation this week and into bowl season will play a huge factor. And I think that needs to be the numbers don't matter as much. My analytics don't matter as much in bowl season and in, conference championship weekend. The motivation, like if I was going to allocate how much of the percentage of my handicap goes to analytics and situational, like it's like 50-50 during the regular season. In bowl season and conference championships, it's like 75-25 situational. So I think you have to make that adjustment. If you want to start with Clemson and UNC, listen, this is a North Carolina offense that has hit a wall. Drake May is a freshman. He has played an amazing season, but over the last 2 weeks, the running game has declined. He hasn't taken as many chances with his legs, and the accuracy has taken a major dip. And that tells me 2 things. One, defenses are adjusting. They've had now 12 weeks of tape to look at what Phil Longo and this offensive staff is trying to accomplish. And it's tough for a freshman to continue to put up these kinds of numbers week in and week out. And let's be honest, the ACC is not exactly murderer's row. Clemson will likely be the best defense that UNC has faced all year, maybe Notre Dame, but Clemson's defense is really tough. And I know they haven't had their typical Clemson season, but Dabo had a closed-door meeting this week, and if I trust anyone to get his guys fired up for one game, it's Dabo. I think that's the one thing he does well. Say what you want about his X's and O's, but he gets guys motivated for games. So I think that's where I'm at with Clemson, UNC. Purdue, Michigan, and LSU, Georgia. I don't know. These games are so tough. Like, I don't want to lay 3 touchdowns with these 2 teams because they don't need the games. They don't need to win by margin. They don't need to win by 3 scores to get into the college football playoff. And arguably, they don't even need to win to get into the college football playoff. I think if you were going to ask me which team has a better chance to put margin early, it would be Georgia, because I have heard a lot of rumblings this week from their players that they are a little bit chapped, that the one thing they haven't done yet is won the SEC championship. And Kirby, over the last 2 weeks, they haven't played that well. You've got some rallying cries to go say, hey, listen, guys, we're getting ready for this, tournament. We're trying to go back to back, and you barely beat Kentucky and Georgia Tech the last 2 weeks, didn't cover either number. So I think motivationally speaking, Georgia's got a little chip on their shoulder in this game, where Michigan's coming off their biggest win against their biggest rival in a blowout, and their best player is now out for the year and out for the college football playoff. So that's the one game I could see being close.
Jeff Brom has been a great double-digit dog outright win coach in the last couple of years. He's done that a bunch at Purdue. But I'm with you on I wouldn't lay it with either one of these teams. On Pickswise.com, I gave out LSU plus the 18.5. But what jumped out to me about the Georgia LSU game was the total. And that number opened at 50.5 and sitting at 51 right now seems very, very low. I mean, we got to remember, Georgia's an offense that averages 39 points a game. They could get to this total on their own if they really wanted to. Here's the thing, though. There's 2 things that happen. One, I'm looking at a game script that I feel plays out very similar to the way the Tennessee's game script played out, where Georgia will get a 2-score lead, and then they will just choke you to death with a Kirby Smart death march down the field. 12-play drives that result in a field goal, 10-play drives that result in a field goal. And Georgia really has not been great in the red zone this year, guys. I mean, that's one of their sort of things that no one's really talking about. While they're great as far as percentage of getting a score in the red zone, they're up over 90%. When it comes to their touchdown percentage, they're very middle of the road in college football. They settled for way too many field goals this year. But again, Kirby Smart's more than willing to run the ball, play defense with a 2-score lead, and just not let LSU get back out on the field and win this game 30-13 or 34-13 and cover it and still stay under the numbers somehow. I think that's relatively possible. I still took the over because I think Georgia can get close to 40. And as long as LSU can get to 17, then you're going over that total.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. The TCU Kansas State game, listen, this has been the most polarizing team in college football all year. They're one of the best teams in college football against the number. Kansas State's like in the top 5 of that category too. But this is like the team that everyone wants to bet on or against and has a very polarizing opinion about. I've kind of softened my stance on TCU as the season has gone on, because I've watched them play and I've been impressed with how tough they are in late game scenarios. And this Kansas State game a few weeks ago, TCU was favored by 3.5 points at home, and now they're favored by 2.5 on a neutral. So what that is telling me is that there's been zero inflation in the market, despite TCU hasn't lost since that game. Obviously, they're undefeated. And I don't know, maybe TCU's home field advantage isn't that good, but, that tells me that there's maybe like a point or 2 points of value here on TCU. But then you look at Kansas State's offense, and they're basically equipped perfectly to beat this TCU defense because they run the football very effectively. And you would hope that, Will Howard or Adrian Martinez aren't going to be hurt in this game like they were in the last game. And Kansas State was, I know, because I was on Kansas State in that game, they were blowing the doors off TCU in the first half. And then all of a sudden, third string quarterback comes in and things unravel. The question that I have is, I don't know if TCU's defense can do the same thing to Deuce Vaughn that they did to Bijan Robinson 2 weeks ago. If they can, TCU is going to win this game. If they can't, Kansas State, I think, is going to win this game. But I think it's going to be close because every TCU game this year has been close. And when I think the game's going to be a coin flip basically in either direction, I don't think I'm betting this one, even though I want TCU to win because I think they deserve a playoff chance based off of their resume. But I don't know if that is going to happen based off of some of the handicaps and the matchups I'm seeing here, especially in the trenches.
Well, I would come back with a couple of things. One, you talk about how the market has reacted to TCU. And I would argue that the market has been wrong on TCU for a better part of this year in general. Not only market's been wrong, but odds makers have been wrong as well. They were only double-digit favorites twice, the opener against Colorado and the final game of the season against Iowa State. Other than that, everything else was single digits or less. That said, you mentioned them being 3.5-point favorites at home. They were a 7-point dog in Texas, who was a higher-ranked team at the time than Kansas State was when they played it. So I think that odds makers and the market have sort of read TCU wrong for a better part of the year. Now, out on the Pickswise.com website, I gave out Kansas State. And you alluded to it a moment ago, simply because there is no Adrian Martinez here, and you won't see Jake, whatever third-string quarterback, not going to play here anymore. Will Howard is the guy. And their offense was optimum with him in the game the first time they met. They built an 18-point lead, dwindled down to an 11-point lead at halftime. And then once Will Howard went out in the third quarter, their third-string quarterback, here's how that game went. Second half starts down by 11. TCU gets the ball, scores an opening touchdown. When K-State gets the ball back, second play, first pass attempt by the third-string quarterback throws a pick. TCU scores another touchdown, and that was it. It was done. It was over. So I think Will Howard playing the entire game here is enough for them to keep this thing close. I wouldn't be shocked to see them win by 1 or 2 and K-State still cover, but TCU come out on top, right? Go look at the Baylor game with a 1-point win. So I think anything is on the table here. But I'm going to back K-State to win this thing, or at least cover the 2.5 here, because I think TCU will feel a little bit of the pressure. Like you said, I think it's going to be an under game, too, because both these teams are going to run the ball more than pass it. Despite the fact that Max Duggan has been great, you got Kendra Miller, you got Deuce Vaughn. Both of these guys can run the hell out of the rock, and I think it'll be slow and defensive early. I actually like a first half under here in this game, too. If they come out throwing and they both have success, more power to you. I just don't see that in a championship game. I think there's a tendency to feel each other out a little bit early and see which team, which coach may make the mistake and try to take advantage of it. So I think things will start out slow. But again, I'll back TCU. And really the only other, the other USC-Utah game I'll give off of my play of the day. But the only other thing I really looked at, too, was Troy.
I love Troy this week.
Here.
I do like Troy this week. I do like Troy a lot this week. I do.
That's the other one that I would, here on the show give out as a play. I'm
Yeah.
going to get to the window on Troy before they kick this thing off tomorrow. So I think a clear advantage there. Coastal Carolina is not really. You talk about motivation for this game. They backed into this game. They probably don't belong there more than anything. And Troy's been a little bit of a juggernaut as of late. So
if you take away that App State, like they had a Hail Mary, Troy against them. If you take away that game, their only loss this year. I mean, it was like the most absurd Hail Mary ever. Their only loss this year was on the road to Ole Miss. I mean, Troy is a good football team. And I think Coastal, we don't know the Grayson McCall situation. He might not even play. So if you bet this at 8.5 now and he doesn't play, this jumps to 10. If you bet it now and he plays, maybe it goes down to 7, but it won't like crush your value because it's still going to be a touchdown spread. And also the thing about some of these conference championships, and we'll get to this a little later with my play of the day, this is a home game for Troy. They're playing it at their home stadium, and that matters a lot.
All right. Before we get to our plays of the day and Pickswise.com, Jared, I'm going to need a little bit of assistance here due to my technical difficulties. Let's Bet is presented by Superbook Sports here. And we want to remind you guys, when you wager on any NFL football game on Sunday, we're rooting for safeties. Why? Because any $100 wager that you get, if there's a safety scored in any game on Sunday, any game at all, not just the one you bet on, you're going to be rewarded with $50 from Superbook Sports. So again, get to Superbook Sports, superbook.com. Put a $100 wager down. Any safety scored on Sunday gets you $50 back. Jared, did I get all that correctly?
You're good, buddy.
Okay, good. Wanted to make sure I was kind of doing that from memory there. And again, apologize for the technical difficulties here. Out on Pickswise.com, we got a ton of 3-star plays out there. You have some out there. I have some out there. What else is on the site for everybody?
Yeah, we got some basketball on the site tonight. Jameer Pondexter, Hermantis Nita has got some NBA for you. We got Tyler Mortimer checking in with some puck. Isles Preds. Philip Tomich also NBA tonight. And Martin Pennington's chiming in from the Aqueduct. 1 o'clock Eastern race today. Aqueduct race 2. 3-star play. I love when we have horse racing on the site. Always a good day. So check that out. Pickswise.com.
By the way, I got to ask you, because, I don't have it up right now. Any U.S. World Cup play for tomorrow?
I've been so bad with my soccer bets. I'm sure I'm going to jinx the U.S. by saying this, but
well,
I think they hang.
Did anybody put one on the site? I mean, was there anything out there?
No.
Okay.
Not
so
that I
no
see of for tomorrow
right
just yet. Wait, hold on.
No one wants to jinx it.
No, and I'll be honest. We've got a draw. Yeah, Chris Rivers gave out the draw, which I think is a good bet. And I think the way that I would play it, if you want to root for the U.S. tomorrow and you still want to win if a draw happens, you can get U.S. on the goal line plus a half for basically minus 110 right now. And I think that's how I'm probably going to play it because let's be honest, we all want to root for the U.S. Like we don't want to root for a draw. Yet if we bet the plus a half, obviously significantly less juice, plus 230 on the draw, minus 110 on the half, we still win on the draw. So that's how I would play it if you want to still, root on your country, which obviously we all want to do. Unless you're like someone.
When do we get to the penalty kick portion of the World Cup? Is that this round?
This round.
Okay. So wait. So
if it's even throughout, you get 90 minutes plus stoppage time. Then you get 30 minutes of extra time. Then you get the penalty shootout. And that will take place on Saturday if it is tied after that 120 minutes.
Just to be clear for our viewers and our listeners, if you bet a draw and it goes to penalty kicks, you're going to lose.
No. So the draw is a 3-way money line. That's only the first 90 minutes. Does not include the extra time. Okay. So the draw would take – so you would win on – if that game goes to penalty shootouts and you bet the draw, you would win your bet.
Well, I want to be clear for everybody.
It is very confusing. It is a very confusing situation.
All right. Very, very confusing for me. All I can't wait for is the 8,000 Austin Powers Gold member references. 2 things I can't stand. People who are intolerable of other people's cultures and the Dutch because we're playing the Dutch. So
there was a funny Seinfeld bit with the Dutch too, Holland and Netherlands, when they were with the mustaches. Yep, I've seen a bunch of funny stuff this week about the Dutch. Smoking
beautiful
the
to
Dutch,
be playing the Netherlands. The Netherlands. All right. We have our plays of the day. Since I am drawing dead here technologically wise, let me go first and and get it out of the way
Do your
here.
thing, bud.
We'll go
Do
to
your
college
thing.
football tomorrow. My play of the day will be USC. I'm going to lay the 2.5 here and back the Trojans to finish this thing off in the rematch against Utah. You know, more than anything, Jared, I'm looking at a scenario here where Caleb Williams is super hot and has been on a run that we haven't seen by any quarterback in a while over a 3-game stretch, given the amount that's been on the line for this quarterback to go out and not only take the lead in the Heisman race, become the Heisman favorite, and carry his team to the college football playoff. But I still don't believe that this Utah defense is as good as people want it to be this year. I don't think it is. They're going to have plenty of ways to run the ball and throw the ball. I know no Travis Dye in this game for USC, but still, Lincoln Riley has this offense running at a clip right now that is as good as it's going to get. Sure, Cam Rising and Utah are going to be able to find their way to score some points, but the Utah defense, the USC defense, rather, which has been opportunistic all week long, will get the requisite turnovers that they need here, and that will change the game for them. Give me USC. I'll lay the 2.5 for Lincoln Riley and the Trojans to finish this thing off, win the Pac-12, and clinch a spot in the college football playoff.
I like it. I'll be honest. I went back and forth on this game several times. I want USC to win. I really am rooting for them to win. I really want to see Caleb Williams play Georgia. Like, that's the matchup we all deserve.
Well, let me add one thing real quick. Because when we talk about teams that could possibly beat Georgia, Jared, I told people there was 3 of them. Ohio State was one. Alabama was the other, just because anytime it's Kirby Smart, Nick Saban, it's a coin flip. And USC, why? Go back to 2017, the Rose Bowl, when they were both in the college football playoff. It was Georgia versus Oklahoma. It was Lincoln Riley and Baker Mayfield at the time. They put up 51 on a Georgia defense. It's not like Lincoln Riley is afraid to scheme against Georgia and their defense. He knows exactly what to do, and that's a matchup that should scare Georgia a little bit because he can absolutely exploit them with Caleb Williams.
I agree, and I'll be honest. Like, we view Georgia as this defensive team. I think they're more of an offensive team, frankly. I know their defense is really good, but if I had to peg why Georgia will win the college football playoff this year, it's going to be because their offense is able to outscore some of these very good offenses that are going to be in the college football playoff, more TCU, USC than Michigan. But listen, JJ McCarthy, man, he's slinging the rock. So the sharps like Utah here and cities move off the 3. That doesn't really matter to me. The sharps have been wrong a lot this year. At this stage of the season, you got to trust your eyes, and the numbers don't matter as much. I think Caleb Williams is the best player on the field, and I really want to see him and USC win this game and get themselves into the college football playoff. So I'm not betting it, but I will be rooting for the Trojans tonight here in Vegas. All right. Let's get to another Friday night. We do have some Friday night college football, which is always exciting. Conference championship weekend. I'm going to back UTSA laying 8.5 tonight at home. This is a home game. It's Conference USA Championship, but it is a home game for UTSA against North Texas. So these two teams played same location about 2 months ago in San Antonio. UTSA won 31-27, which is actually a pretty close game, right? Well, now they're laying 8.5. Do you really want to lay 8.5? Well, the box score in that game says North Texas got absolutely dominated, and they were very fortunate to only lose by 4. They were outgained 495 to 347. They were out first downed 32-13. 38 minutes time of possession for UTSA, and North Texas, which is a running football team, only rushed for 22 yards in that game. I don't know how they kept it within the number and only lost by 4, but so North Texas lost 5 games this year. The one to UTSA by 4 points. All 4 of their other losses have been by 10 points or more. So when they lose, they tend to lose big. I think that North Texas UTSA game in late October was a bit of an anomaly, and I think we're going to see the real explosion tonight by this UTSA offense. This is a really, really good UTSA offense. You don't talk about them a whole lot. You don't watch them a whole lot because they play in Conference USA and they're a small school. But Frank Clark's one of the better quarterbacks in the country that, again, we don't talk about. And you're going to see a guy at receiver tonight for UTSA if you're watching this game, and I hope you are. DeCorian Clark is an absolute star. And this is a Roadrunners offense. They remember last year, and I know they only won by 4 a few weeks ago, but last year, this was the only team that beat them during the regular season. And it was a beat down by like 23 points on the final day of the regular season. UTSA had nothing to play for getting ready for the Conference USA Championship game. In this particular matchup, they have everything to play for. I think they completely blow the doors off the Mean Green tonight, so I will lay 8.5 with the Roadrunners. Meet me on a Friday night down in San Antonio.
Great stuff as always. All right, Jared on UTSA. I'm on USC tonight, Friday night. Plenty of college football action to get to the entire weekend. Yes, that'll do it for us here on this edition of Let's Bet It. Make sure you guys download the Pickswise app, available at the Apple Store and Google Play. Subscribe to the Pickswise YouTube channel. We will be back tomorrow for another edition. Get you wrapped up here. Championship weekend college. Get you ready for the NFL Sunday. For Jared Smith, I'm Mark Zinno. Thanks for watching us. Have a wonderful Friday. Go get it. Go bet it. We'll see you tomorrow right here on Let's Bet It.